All right, everyone. So we got a divisional game here between the Falcons and the Panthers. So obviously, this division always plays each other tough, and these are always interesting games because it doesn't matter how bad one of the teams are. It just feels like these are always ugly, ugly games. So we're going to give you our argument for why each side can cover, and then we'll give you our play at the end of this thing. And actually, from when I took notes till now, we actually got some line movement, so that is helpful. Okay, so the Falcons are minus 5.5. The total for the game is 43.5. And on the money line, the Panthers are plus 185 as the underdog. So why can the Falcons cover? Well, it's pretty simple. The Panthers haven't looked good. This is a team that a lot of people, actually for the last 2 years, bettors have been waiting. They've been salivating at the mouth for the Panthers to be a good team, right? They want this team to be frisky. You saw some things from Bryce Young, especially at the end of last season after he got benched. He comes back. You see some really good stuff. People are waiting on it, and it just hasn't come. The Panthers have really just been a disaster. And it doesn't mean that there's, no world in which you could bet them, but they're just not a very good team. And it is sad because I'm rooting for Bryce Young. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this Falcons defense is legit. And I say this because the way the Falcons, could cover this spread, if we're talking about how they're going to be able to cover it, is just by making sure that the Panthers can't score the football. 5.5 is not a great number. This is a number below that 7 number, which is key, right? That's 100% true. Even below the 6 number, right? That's also, you talk about in overtime, if, both sides can't score, getting that point 0.5, getting it at 5.5 versus 6.5 or 7.5, God forbid, right? That's a huge boost. And to cover a spread like that, you really need a defense that's going to stop the Panthers, right? We're going to be really nervous about a potential backdoor cover. So you want this team to be up 14 points, 21 points. You don't want this hanging around 10 because that has backdoor cover written all over it. The beauty of it is at 5.5, there's a lot of avenues for us to cover, right? If we are up 10, let's say the Panthers are driving late, in the NFL, a lot of times they'll kick that late field goal to make it a one possession game. We're still covering with 5.5. So the minus 5.5, I think the two things to lean on are we have a defense, and defense is very consistent, especially against a team like the Panthers, right? They can make life miserable, and the Panthers are just a bad team, and that's helpful. And those are the two things I think on the Falcon side. On the Panther side, look, I understand there was a lot of shenanigans at the end of the Cardinals game, but when you watch the end of that, Bryce Young, did he find a rhythm? And I know this might seem like a little bit of wishful thinking, but I do think that you really see, especially, we saw this last year with Bryce Young, where there is a carryover to if he finds a little bit of that rhythm, can he take it into the next game? And when we're talking about 5.5 points with the Panthers at home, you're giving yourself, like I said, it's not a terrible number if you're betting the minus side, right? If you're betting on the Falcons, but it's also not, a 2.5 or something like that, or a 1.5. So very, very important to look at that. And I think there's a potential that they found a little bit of something, maybe a little bit of confidence to end that game. And I wrote in my notes 4.5 is a lot for this Falcons team, and I gonna have to change that because now the line has moved to 5.5. And I do think that's a lot for this Falcons team because as much as I love their defense, we see time and time again, especially in this division, where these teams just appear to doesn't matter what type of game they're playing, they're playing down to their competition, and there's missed field goals, there's fumbles, there's dumb decisions in the red zone. It just always happens. And it doesn't mean the Falcons won't get out of here with a win because I think this is a key game for the Falcons because, we just saw them get a big win over the Vikings. You want to keep rolling. But when we're talking about 5.5, you need a team that's going to go out there for me to lay a number like that that you can really trust. And the Falcons team are not a team I trust, even in their win over the Vikings. That offense made mistake after mistake after mistake, and the defense is what bailed them out. On this game, on the Panthers side, all they have to do is, you know, play a clean game, force a turnover here and there, and easily, I think we cover the spread. So where is it? Where will I be putting my money in this game? Well, I'm going to be betting the Panthers plus 5.5, and I get it. Okay, this one is ugly. We kind of have a few ugly bets. If you're watching all of our betting recap videos, we have a few ugly bets. I get it. It's a little bit annoying, but this one is another one. And I know there's not a whole lot of reason to trust this Panthers team. This is more about the Falcons and the team that we know that they are. And I think the Falcons, they could be a playoff team. I really like them, especially that defense, man. Watching against the Vikings, how that defense was just flying all over the place. And I do like that. But to cover a 5.5 point spread, you need offense. And the Falcons just appear, they have these great offensive possessions where you see all the talent they have. You see the talent of Michael Penix Jr. You see Bijan Robinson, right? You see a guy like Drake London make a big catch. And then you'll wonder for about a quarter and a half, 2 quarters, where the hell did that offense go? And I think that's what we're going to see a little bit of. And if Bryce Young could just put together a few drives for us and just keep this thing close, down at the end of this game, I think we could see either a win on a field goal or, a situation where we get a late game cover on the Panthers end. So, yeah, I get it. You know, you're probably sitting there going, man, okay, you're falling for the trap, right? You're falling for the better trap of kind of laying it with these Panthers. I just can't think of a better spot for the Panthers at home against a division team that we just know what this division does, right? This is how they go about it. So thank you all for watching. As we always say, never gamble what you can't afford to lose. And we will see you next time.